Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to counter some of the bad news that we often hear with some great news about education in the state of Pennsylvania. But first, big stories of the week. Imagine this, the death penalty. Where does it stand? And then increasing drug use in the state, another important topic, as they say. Let's get to it.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, we have two journalists who are here with me today who are often on the show. We love to have them. Joining me, as I just said, as often is the case, is Marc Levy. He's with the Associated Press, and Angela Couloumbis. She's with the Philadelphia Inquirer. All right, Angela, I'm going to start with you. The death penalty, man, it's decades since it's been actually used in this state, but yet it's still on the books. It's legal. Right. Maybe not so long. Right, go ahead.
There's been this very interesting case that has flown under the radar that's now before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and the case is actually asking the court to weigh in on a very simple question. Is the death penalty constitutional or excessively cruel? Does it violate the state's constitution against the prohibition on cruelty? And the case stems from two legal challenges by death row inmates who are now bringing in the results of a study, a very exhaustive study that was released last summer on the death penalty that took years to make and how it's imposed in Pennsylvania. And the study raised issues on disparities and how the death penalty is imposed, and how certain factors such as race and geography play sometimes an outsized role in deciding who is subject to the death penalty. Yeah,
I mean, Marc, as you know, you've covered Governor Wolf since the inception of his tenure. He's issued, is a proper way, a moratorium on the death penalty. Go ahead. It's not. He says don't bother. If a court says you get the death penalty, take it.
Essentially, he's not signing death warrants, so it's an effective moratorium. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has upheld this strategy against a legal challenge, but you have to look at it in context that no one's been executed in this state in decades who didn't drop their appeals. So the three people who have been executed in Pennsylvania since 1970s all dropped their appeals and gave up. Everyone who is sent to death row ends up fighting it for many years.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
The important thing on the question of the moratorium is that once this administration changes over, there is no guarantee that the next governor is going to continue this moratorium or just drop it. So if that were to be the case, in theory, you would have a governor signing off on executions, and these types of cases, if your appeals have been exhausted, inmates coming up or becoming eligible for execution.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on one level, Marc, we have a death penalty, as we know. The 1990s, is that the last time?
The late 1990s, the last execution.
Last time someone was executed in the state, put to death legally in the state. So you have to sit back, whether you're for or against the penalty, and say, what? How many years do we have to does this have to go by, until we get it straightened out one way or another? And are you both suggesting that this case could be dispositive, definitive on it?
Legal experts are watching it very closely. The legislature is watching it very closely because I think the fear is that on the legislature's part, that the court is going to be effectively changing public policy from the bench. Now, the court has many options in front of it. It could just dismiss it outright, or it could say, indeed, the system is broken and it needs to be fixed before an execution can take place.
Now, Marc, you cover the legislature daily. That's your full-time job for the Associated Press. I've not heard much in the way of a sense of moving in the legislature to end the death penalty. Am I right or wrong about that?
There's just been no debates about it, and it would be sort of unknown territory if they were forced to deal with it and debate it. who would fall where on this. I mean, for all we know, the legislature might be unwilling to reauthorize if the court struck it down, or reauthorize it in some form.
Sure. All right, well, look, we're going to run to a break. I'll tell you, we've got a couple of other great topics. The opioid situation in the state, they've put up money to battle it, but it looks like in some respects they might be losing the battle over expanded drug use. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Well, Angela Couloumbis and Marc Levy join me. They're both reporters, journalists. They cover state politics, among other things. All right, Marc, you wrote a piece this past week, I think, that has to do with the injection of additional drugs into the state of Pennsylvania, just when all this discussion is going on about opioids and what's going to happen with them and can take... Well,
yeah, so it was a surprise to me, but during a hearing this week in front of the Senate, the Secretary of the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs, Jennifer Smith, told lawmakers that at the same time that the opioid epidemic might be losing some of its strength, that death rates are starting to decline in some areas of Pennsylvania, that there's a growing concern over cocaine and methamphetamine use. Now, she said to me that there was a feeling that it would come to Pennsylvania at some point. We've seen rising use of it in Kentucky and Ohio, other parts of the Midwest.
Right.
But now what she's saying is that evidence of overdoses, hospitalizations, law enforcement seizures is pointing to growing use in Philadelphia, Johnstown, and Pittsburgh areas. And those are essentially the three early warning areas of Pennsylvania that indicate a coming trend.
Oh, okay. So it looks like, is this, I mean, we read that we were getting a handle on it. All these reports were, the legislature actually appropriated money for it, right? In the budget, am I correct about that?
That's right, yeah.
And now it looks like there's a reversal. Is there any other discussions in the state going on right now, or is it just sort of only comes up at budget times?
Well, sure. I think the focus has been so strongly on the opioid epidemic in recent years, and there have been so many resources that have gone to battling it,
right.
That this problem is just sort of cropping up and rearing its ugly head. And it is something that they are going to, if it starts playing out, in very large numbers, that they're going to absolutely have to take a look at and see how they can funnel money to combat the problem.
So something the legislature may have to rethink and reevaluate in terms of how they deal with it. Is that correct?
I would think so.
Yeah. Look, in her statement to lawmakers, Jennifer Smith told them that this is something that needs to be watched, and it's causing problems in Ohio and Kentucky. And here in Pennsylvania, it's started, at least anecdotally, the early evidence that we have, and some of this data tends to be a year or a year and a half late when we can analyze it, but it does look like it's growing quickly.
All right, I want to switch topics. The irony of ironies, on March 28th of this month, we have the 40th anniversary of the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident. Mm-hmm. As you and I speak, as we speak, Exelon has said at the end of September, if the state doesn't help out, they're going to close the 3 Mile Island plant. I mean, it seems like, and they'll probably get decommissioned, which means they'll lose their license to produce energy. So where does this all stand? Is the legislature likely to help out? They came to the legislature, am I right about this?
That's right. So Exelon, the owner of 3 Mile Island, has been talking to lawmakers for a couple years now. And this could be a debate that essentially really controls much of the spring for lawmakers. But what the nuclear power plant owners in Pennsylvania want is some sort of preferential treatment in which utilities and other buyers of electricity have to buy a certain portion of their portfolio from nuclear power.
Now, is that likely to, I mean, it's just beginning to stir.
Right.
Go
yes,
ahead.
I don't believe there has been formal legislation in either chamber that it's been introduced, but there and leadership has kind of taken a very quiet role, just listening and watching legislative leadership. Except last week, the majority leader in the Senate, Jake Corman, did talk about how he believed that the nuclear power industry is an important industry in Pennsylvania, and we don't want to see it go away. I believe those were some of his words, indicating that they are going to take a very serious look at it in the next 3 months.
All right, we're running out of time for this segment. Minimum wage, it's $7.25 in this state. The governor says let's go to $12 an hour and then ultimately to $15 an hour. Is this something that the legislature can compromise on? Maybe $10, $10.25? Take it, Marc.
So look, the indications I'm getting are that Republicans are willing to listen and talk about this. The governor and Democrats are going to have to come way down, it would seem, to get a deal with Republicans on it. It's also hard to tell what else Republicans would want Democrats to go along
give up
with.
Yeah. You agree with that?
Absolutely. That was a perfect synopsis of what's happening, and we do think it will be part of the budget discussions this spring.
Well, as always, I want to thank you for adding to, I'll say this, the gravitas of the program. It's deeply appreciated. All right, we have some great education news. I know we often hear some things not so favorable. We have some wonderful news about education, and we're going to bring it to you after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, we're going to have all positive and upbeat information during the next 2 segments of this program. We're going to talk about education. Joining me is Marilyn Pryle. I got that right. She is the 2019 Teacher of the Year. She's down at Abington Heights High School, where she is in the classroom every day, right?
Every day.
Good for you. And then Korri Brown, she's a Pennsylvania State Education Association Vice President. So we're going to divide this up into 2 parts. We're going to talk about Read Across America and how important that is, and then we're going to get to Teacher of the Year, something that Marilyn won. Why did she win that? Well, she's going to tell us. All right, Korri, let's start with you. I can't imagine, as someone who spent virtually his entire life with students, I can't imagine anything in the classroom more important than being able to read. Am I right or wrong?
You are spot on, and this is our way of celebrating literacy and reading, not just in the classroom, but sharing it with your families and encouraging young people to read, not only in school but out of school, and developing their love of reading from when they're little guys through post-secondary education. This is our way of, and we've been doing this since 1998. And we celebrated on Dr. Seuss's birthday, and this year he would have been 116 years old.
And this is National Reading Month, so this is going on all over the country?
All over the country, in classrooms, in social service organizations, in our local libraries. People are stopping what they're doing. They're putting down their electronic devices.
You mean get rid of, now you have to read to use this, by the way.
Or they're finding books digital. They're whatever, but they're reading. And
I will tell you something. More and more people, when you travel, and they're reading books online. Is it me? Or, I mean, is
No, that's
I'm a big library person, by the way.
Yes.
I love libraries, but take it. You deal with students every day.
I do, and in my class, I teach world literature, but we also do a book club where students can choose their own books and choose their own groups. We're also one-to-one at our school, which means every student has a Chromebook. So many of the students do read their books on their Chromebooks. It's just a way of the world nowadays, I think. Many students, even at their young age, they'll choose to read print books, though still they prefer that.
Right. So what specific are some of the programs that are involved when you talk about Read Across America?
So you'll find celebrations in virtually every classroom, particularly here in Pennsylvania. So it's very building specific. So if there's a different theme that's going on, you'll have teachers having students come in dressed as their favorite characters from their favorite books. One of my favorite things to do, particularly during the month of March, go in and serve as a guest reader into different classrooms. And for many years, back in my home school in Kennett Square, I took students from the high school and we went to our elementary buildings and read to the
So you had the older students reading to the younger students?
Absolutely, because little kids like to emulate the big kids.
Yeah, good point. Great point, actually.
And they loved it. And some of my older readers would come back and say, I can't wait to do it again next year. Or I've actually had one who's ended up pursuing a career as an educator. She's been teaching for the last 10 years now.
Yeah.
But it gives the kids that opportunity, those meaningful experiences that you can't take away.
Sure. Do you have programs at Abington? Or do you just invite people in, or does teachers just do it on their own?
We just do it on our own. And I'll say for me, the biggest thing about reading is the element of choice and engagement. When students are allowed to choose their own books, they seek out, things that they might want to read. And all it takes is one good book to hook them and to turn them into readers. Because a lot of times they think that they're not readers. They label themselves as non-readers. I had one student come to me in the fall and he said, Mrs. Pryle, he said, I hate reading and I'm not a reader and I never read, but I love this book. Yeah. And I said, I hate to break it to you, but that makes you a reader. So they come in with these perceptions that they can't do it or they're not good.
Well, what I love is, I won't mention the name of the store because I don't want to promote somebody's business, but when I go into this one, you can have copy. And what I love to see is when the kids come in, they run into the book section or with whatever they're doing with magazine, and they sit down on the floor and start reading. I mean, there's not a better, if there's a better sight, I don't know. All right, Teacher of the Year, what's that all about, and why should we care?
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Well, I'm always excited to talk, and we've done this over the years, to talk about Teacher of the Year. I won't get into it. No, we're not talking about anything bad today on this program. It's all, or at least in these two segments, it's all upbeat, and we have Marilyn, the Teacher of the Year, is with us. First of all, how do you get to be Teacher of the Year? Is that a dumb question?
No, and I didn't even know how it worked till it happened to me. But basically, a year ago, not this fall, the fall before that, a colleague recommended me and a colleague nominated me, and it was a year-long process involving essays and videos, and you kept having to hand in more things, and you kind of made it to the next round and the next round.
Oh my gosh.
Finally, I was one of 12 finalists. And we all met each other at the SAS conference in December, and I just learned how wonderful these other people were. They were exceptional educators.
So let me ask you this question. So you got it for your teaching. Well, what do you teach?
I teach 10th grade world literature.
10th grade. Now, here we are. We're back on reading, right? We didn't get too far away from that. World literature. So was it just what you did what did you have extracurricular activities involved as students?
I think
you had to do something special.
They look at what you do in the classroom and what your style is. And outside the classroom, I also write books for teachers. I also run a local refugee conversation group in the city of Scranton.
Say that again?
A local conversation group for refugees in the city of Scranton.
The kids of people who have refugee status?
They're actual refugees that have just come over under the federal government, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And so Scranton has a large population of that. So I run that program, and many of my high school students help me run it. So I think all of that kind of contributed, but I'll tell you that the other finalists were so exceptional that I just feel like a representative of the group, you know?
So you're representing other great teachers,
yes.
Is that what you would say? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's fascinating. Now, okay, Teacher of the Year, she does not stand back on her campus, right? She's running around. Is she running around all over the state? What happened? What's this? What do you do with this?
Marilyn, as her predecessors have done, will travel all across this Commonwealth, providing services, in-service opportunities for her colleagues. She'll have some speaking engagements that she'll do. There'll be several coming up in the next 6 to 8 weeks, where Marilyn will discuss her process. She will possibly engage with other Teachers of the Years from across the country. Mm-hmm. So it's just about highlighting not only the work that she's done, but what her colleagues have done and are doing across all of our schools.
Is that a daunting challenge for you to get? I mean, do you talk about what you do and what works? And let's be honest, and sometimes what doesn't work. We all, I've spent a long time in the classroom. Sometimes things don't work out. Go ahead.
Well, my message is going to be one about teaching students to have these human 21st century type skills like creativity, innovation, courage, compassion even. I think these are going to be really important in our future world. So I'm going to be encouraging teachers to take more risks in the classroom, to
you talk
try
about
things.
Homework?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that's up to the individual teacher.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of homework myself, but I know it's a debate, and so everyone has to make their own decision there. But I'll mostly be encouraging teachers to do what they know. I mean, we're all really good. We're in it because we love it.
Yeah,
so I'll be encouraging teachers to just continue on.
And you're very upbeat and optimistic. I can tell the smile on your face about the program, aren't you?
It warms my heart seeing educators supporting other educators and sharing our experiences, both positive and negative, and helping to develop better teachers. So I may be good, but Marilyn might have an awesome idea that I can replicate or make my own in my classroom in school. And then I can share that with other colleagues, and we can continue to support one another as we educate our students.
And there's no one way, right? I mean, what works for some person might work, not work so well.
Correct. And every community is different. That's another thing. Every teacher is different. We're all experts in our own ways. So it really is going to be an individualized process, as students are different.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I think we've done this before. I mean, I think this is an important program, providing you don't get into a lot of controversies with your colleagues over how this all takes place, and I'm sure you don't. I'm just kidding. But thanks for coming on, and guess what? We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.